What if you could water your garden once and walk away for days, even weeks, while your plants quietly take exactly what they need when they need it? No hoses, no timers, no pressure, just buried clay and gravity doing the work. This isn't a new invention. It's a 4,000 years old irrigation system that fed entire civilizations in dry climates long before modern agriculture existed, and it didn't disappear because it failed. It disappeared because it didn't need to be replaced. For thousands of years, farmers across China, the Middle East, North Africa, and the American Southwest buried unglazed clay vessels beside their crops. They filled them with water, covered the opening, and left. The soil decided how much moisture to pull. The roots decided when to drink. There was no schedule, no waste, and almost no evaporation. Today, this same system can reduce water use by up to 70% while producing healthier plants with less effort. In this video, you'll see how it works, why it's so effective, and why a method this simple was quietly pushed aside in favor of systems that require constant upgrades and replacements. Welcome to Timeless Harvest, where forgotten farming knowledge is brought back into the present. If you care about growing more with less water, protecting your soil, and building a garden that works with nature instead of against it, subscribe now and share this with someone who still thinks daily watering is normal. Sometimes the future of food isn't new technology at all. It's remembering what already worked. 4,000 years ago, farmers in some of the harshest climates on Earth were already solving the problem modern agriculture still struggles with today: how to grow food reliably with very little water. In northern China, unglazed clay pots were buried beside crops and filled periodically, allowing moisture to seep slowly into the soil underground. Similar systems appeared independently across Persia and the Middle East, where engineers refined the placement and spacing to survive extreme heat and long dry seasons. The idea was simple but powerful. Instead of forcing water onto the soil surface, water was stored safely below ground, protected from sun and wind, and released only when the surrounding soil became dry. What makes this remarkable is how far the method traveled without modern communication. Variations of the same buried clay irrigation appeared in North Africa, parts of the Mediterranean, and among indigenous communities in the American Southwest. These were societies shaped by drought, not abundance, and they trusted this system because it worked when rainfall failed. Early American homesteaders later adopted similar techniques during westward expansion, using buried vessels to keep crops alive when surface watering was impossible. Different cultures, different soils, different crops, yet the same solution emerged again and again. Then, in the mid-20th century, the method quietly vanished from mainstream agriculture, not through failure, but through replacement. As industrial irrigation expanded, systems that required pumps, tubing, fittings, and constant maintenance took center stage. Agricultural textbooks stopped mentioning buried clay irrigation, universities stopped teaching it. A system that could last decades without replacement had no place in an economy built on recurring sales. What replaced it wasn't always more effective. It was simply easier to sell, easier to standardize, and impossible to own once and forget. At the center of this system is a material most people overlook: unglazed clay. When fired at the right temperature, clay becomes solid but not sealed. Under a microscope, its surface is filled with countless tiny pores, invisible to the eye, but large enough for water to pass through slowly. When a clay pot filled with water is buried in the soil, it doesn't leak, it breathes. Water moves through the pot's walls only when the surrounding soil is dry enough to pull it outward. This is where the real intelligence of the system appears. Dry soil creates tension, drawing moisture from the pot. As the soil becomes moist, that tension disappears, and the flow of water slows or stops completely. There are no valves, no sensors, and no human decisions involved. The system responds automatically to what the soil and roots are doing in real time. When plants are small, they take less. As they grow and demand increases, more water is released. After rain, the soil stays saturated, and the pot simply holds its water. Modern irrigation systems work on schedules. This one works on need. Instead of wetting leaves and compacting soil at the surface, water is delivered directly into the root zone, where it's actually used. Evaporation is nearly eliminated. Runoff disappears, roots grow deeper and stronger because moisture is always available below the surface, not briefly on top. The plants are effectively controlling their own irrigation, using physics that has worked the same way for thousands of years. To understand why this system matters, it helps to place it next to what most gardens use today. Sprinklers throw water into the air, where heat and wind can take a large portion before it ever reaches the soil. Wet leaves invite disease, and much of the water lands where roots don't exist. Drip irrigation improves on this, but it replaces one problem with another. Tubes clog, fittings fail, pressure must be regulated, and the system only delivers water on a preset schedule, whether the plants need it or not. Buried clay irrigation works in the opposite direction. Water never touches the surface. It moves slowly underground, directly into the root zone, and only when the soil demands it. There is nothing to program, nothing to pressurize, and nothing to adjust as the weather changes. The same pot that releases more water during heat waves automatically slows down after rainfall, without any human input. The result is a dramatic difference in efficiency. Gardens using buried clay vessels consistently use far less water, often cutting consumption by more than half, compared to surface watering. Instead of daily attention, the system is refilled once a week or less. Instead of ongoing maintenance and replacement parts, the same vessel can function for years. It isn't faster or flashier than modern systems, it's quieter, simpler, and far closer to how plants actually use water. Using this system doesn't require special tools or complex measurements, but the details matter. The vessel must be unglazed terracotta or naturally porous clay. If the surface is sealed, painted, or glazed, the system won't work. The clay needs to breathe. Size matters too. Smaller pots serve individual plants or tight beds, while larger vessels can support multiple plants at once. These can be sourced from local potters, garden suppliers, or made by hand, as long as the clay remains unsealed. Installation is simple but precise. A hole is dug so the pot sits buried in the soil, with only the neck exposed above ground. This keeps water underground and protected from evaporation. The pot is placed, backfilled firmly to remove air gaps, then filled with water. The opening is covered with a lid, stone or cork to prevent debris and heat from entering. Once filled, the surrounding soil is watered lightly once to help establish contact between soil and pot. Plants are placed around the vessel, within the area the moisture can reach. Most crops thrive when planted in a ring around the pot, allowing roots to grow toward a constant underground water source. Tomatoes, peppers, greens, squash, beans and herbs respond especially well. Shallow-rooted or waterlogged crops benefit less. Maintenance is minimal. The pot is checked every few days at first, then about once a week once conditions are understood. Aside from occasional cleaning in mineral-heavy soils, the system largely runs itself. The results of this system become obvious over time, not in a single day. As weeks pass, plants develop deeper, more resilient root systems because water is always available below the surface. Growth becomes steadier, instead of spiking and crashing between waterings. Leaves stay dry, soil stays loose, and stress from heat drops noticeably, even during long dry stretches. Side-by-side comparisons tell the story clearly. Gardens watered from the surface require frequent attention and show uneven moisture levels. Gardens using buried clay vessels stay consistently hydrated with far less water. In time-lapse footage, the difference appears subtle but constant: healthier color, stronger stems and fewer signs of stress. When water use is tracked, the reduction is measurable, not theoretical. Less water in, better growth out. Perhaps the most telling result is what doesn't happen. There is no runoff, no crusted soil, and no daily routine tied to watering. Once the vessels are in place, the garden becomes quieter. The system fades into the background, doing exactly what it was designed to do thousands of years ago. Deliver water only where it's needed, only when it's needed. This system wasn't left behind because it stopped working. It was left behind because agriculture changed its priorities. As farming became industrialized, solutions that could be standardized, scaled, and sold repeatedly took precedence over ones that simply lasted. Buried clay irrigation didn't require replacement parts, seasonal upgrades, or ongoing purchases. Once installed, it could function for years with almost no intervention. That made it invisible to an industry built around continuous consumption. Modern irrigation fit the new model perfectly. Pumps, hoses, emitters, filters, and controllers created entire supply chains. Universities taught what manufacturers supplied. Extension programs promoted systems that aligned with industrial infrastructure. Quiet, low-tech methods that couldn't be patented or optimized for recurring profit slowly disappeared from textbooks, not through debate or failure, but through omission. What wasn't taught eventually stopped being remembered. There was also a cultural shift. Speed replaced patience. Control replaced cooperation. Systems that responded to soil and roots were viewed as primitive compared to systems that responded to timers and pressure. Durability became less important than convenience and expansion. In that environment, a method that asked you to install it once and trust it didn't stand a chance. What was lost wasn't efficiency or effectiveness. It was a way of thinking, one that valued permanence over replacement and understanding over control. After 4,000 years, this system still asks the same quiet question it always has. Do plants need more technology, or do they need water delivered in the way they have always used it? Buried clay irrigation doesn't fight heat, wind, or soil. It works with them. It removes the stress of constant watering, eliminates most waste before it ever happens, and creates conditions where roots grow deeper, soil stays alive, and plants regulate themselves. Long before pumps, plastics, or schedules existed, this method fed families, sustained communities, and carried crops through droughts that would destroy surface-watered fields today. That alone should force a pause. When something survives across continents, climates, and centuries unchanged, it isn't outdated, it's refined. What makes this system powerful isn't just efficiency, it's restraint. There's no promise of instant growth or dramatic intervention. Instead, there's consistency. Water is always present, never excessive, never absent. Plants don't experience shock. Soil doesn't crust or compact. Roots don't stay shallow. The garden becomes stable, predictable, and resilient, even when the weather isn't. In a world where solutions are constantly marketed as upgrades, this one offers something rare. The ability to install it once and stop thinking about it. Less water, less labor, fewer inputs, healthier plants over time. That is not nostalgia. That is function. If even one buried clay vessel changes how a single bed grows this season, it proves the point. You don't need to overhaul your entire garden. You don't need new equipment or complex systems. You only need to allow the soil and roots to do what they already know how to do. Try one. Observe it. Let the results speak quietly, the same way they have for thousands of years. And if this knowledge felt useful, share it. Subscribe to Timeless Harvest and help bring back methods that were never broken, only forgotten. The future of growing food may depend less on invention and more on remembering what worked long before we stopped listening.